If you're a small business owner, you'll know just what it's like to be the chief everything officer. HR, payroll, employee benefits. Well, Gusto can do all of that for you. Gusto is online payroll and benefits software built for small businesses. It's all in one, remote friendly, and incredibly easy to use. It's quick and simple to switch to Gusto. Just transfer your existing data to get up and running fast. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/lockedonsoccer and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's gusto.com/lockedonsoccer.
The world's biggest soccer tournament has arrived, and you can trade the entire tournament on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade every match from the opening stage all the way to the final. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code CUP26 to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI Kalshi. Trade the beautiful game. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
I recently got back from a holiday in Belek in Turkey. It was brilliant, but I did spend it looking longingly at the golf courses in the area. In reality, if I'd taken my clubs, I probably would have come back from that family holiday single. It's a brilliant place, stunning beaches, 5-star hospitality in some of the best hotels on earth, but for me, just getting out on those courses would have been the icing on the cake. Search Turkey on TripAdvisor now to book your ultimate golf holiday in the Turkish Riviera.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to another However podcast. And although we had a news roundup this week, we thought we'd jump on to see where we are a few days after the news broke and a few days after Gav Ant jumped on for an emergency pod, which was Saturday, I think, from memory. And they gave their initial reaction to the news that broke about Chelsea's apparent approach for our captain, XHAKA. So we're going to see where the lads' heads are with that now that we've had a few days of radio silence, actually. And we'll have a chat about anything else as well that's happened recently. So luckily for me, as I said, I've got a few people who I'm sure are glad to have the opportunity to have their say on the rumours. And I'll emphasise rumours at this point. And first up, we have Jonny Hawley. Hello, Jonny.
Hello, Chris. Yeah, I wish I was joining you in slightly more positive circumstances today, but ready and raring to go.
I'm really looking forward to getting into it because actually we'll have a bit of a debate maybe on a few of these things. But the other thing we'll talk about is your favourite, which is things breaking on social media. So I'm looking forward to getting that into that as well. Your Room 101 pick, which I think I put in. Did I put in? I can't remember.
So to be honest, I just default to assuming that you reject all my suggestions, Chris. So at this point, I'd say no.
Well, if I didn't put it in, I'll officially publicly apologise now if I didn't because of what's happened.
To be honest, I think you might have done at the time as well. I don't know why I'm dragging you over the coals like this. It's very unbecoming.
Yeah, but I can't actually. I'm going to have to go back because I'll not be happy if I didn't put it in, considering what's happened. But anyway, also joining us, we have Andrew Smithson. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Mara. I'm hoping I'm in better fettle than Jonny, bless him. I mean, he's already picking fights about previous episodes and in the doldrums about XHAKA. We'll be all right, I'm sure. No need to panic just yet.
Well, I was hoping, you'd be the calm one because I was worried that when I introduced you there, you were going to already be pent up. I wasn't quite sure where you're at, but listening to you there, you seem calm about everything.
I always take the same attitude. If somebody wants to leave Sunderland, go on then. We'll just crack on. We'll forget about you soon enough. Whether they're our best player or not, I'll always just kid myself. Like if you ask a girl out and they say no, and you go, "I didn't want to get out with you anyway." It's like that. I'm looking at you two lads thinking, well, of course you two lads don't know what that's like. But yeah, I am always of an attitude of, listen, if they don't want to be here, off you pop. See you later.
So I was going to go the other way, Andrew. I was going to say, what do you mean? If you're asking, she says no. You mean when you're asking, she says no, and you got to try and save some face. No, I wasn't bothered. Nah, not for me anyway.
It was a joke. It was one of the lads.
Oh
there
yeah,
was to
me
do it.
mates put us up to it. Aye.
Don't worry, mate. I've had my heart ripped out with a spoon. Don't worry about that, mate. But and I had a mate
Not
actually.
you as well, Chris. Oh, well,
I remember one of my mates talking about getting rejected. Probably shouldn't say this, actually, but I did have a mate on the dance floor where a bunch of girls dancing in a circle as they did. We just went round one by one. Well, of course, if you go on to the next one, they're not exactly going to be like, oh, yeah, well, I'm fourth choice. Brilliant. Yeah, come on then.
Sounds like the
Anyway.
Mags trying to find a striker last summer.
Well, I said fourth. I didn't get down to 40th choice. Right. But, and Andrew, anyway, I was going to pick up what you said all that. But, just the mere mention of Marco Gabbiadini leaving, I can see your face, the anguish on your face.
Well, that's why I've since taken on this like tough exterior. Hurt once, never be hurt again. Marco Gabbiadini just absolutely ruined me. Broke all those childhood ideas that Sunderland were the best team in the world and all of this, and no player would ever want to leave us. And ever since then, I've just put the Gabbiadini rule into place. Once you're gone, that's it.
I know, man. I know how you feel. I'm still hurting off when Andy Melville was released after we won the league title.
And
still
don't we know it? Don't we
still
know
hurts. It genuinely does. He deserved a chance in the Premier League. Really, what were you doing? Anyway, let's get into it because look, Granit Xhaka, it broke on Saturday. Gav Ant did a fantastic job jumping straight on for an emergency pod. It was really good to listen to those two for an initial reaction because, of course, everything else you see in chats at the time and, well, I guess on the socials, everything I was sent in terms of the socials seemed to be there was some sort of mushroom cloud based around the rumours and what might or might not happen. So there has been, as I said, complete silence from the player publicly. Obviously, he's busy playing in a World Cup and he had a game as well. He had a fixture. I think he was asked about it actually, but we'll get into a bit of that. Certainly silence from the club. The latest, as we record, is apparently, and again, according to some reports on the socials, and again, this is not verified by anything, and we'll take it with a pinch of salt as we'll get into, that they've improved their initial bid of 8 million and increased it to around 10 million. So I don't know whether we're meant to be grateful of that or how much we believe it, but it might be just somebody just reporting any old thing. But let's get into that to start with, because Jonny, we talked about you in your entry for Room 101. This was one of your pet hates. This thing is all being played out on social media by, and I want to say the usual suspects. You might tell me otherwise, because I genuinely don't know who started it. I guess Romano has done I don't know whether he's reposted it, I don't know whether he's posted it, I don't know who the players are and stuff, so you might know a lot more than me, but by the way it's played out, does this make it more or less believable?
Well, I think it makes it more believable that there is a desire for Xhaka to move. I think Phil Smith released a good video the other day where he kind of sat down and gave his thoughts about it, and one of the things that he was kind of emphasizing was it's important with these things to focus on what we can actually work out is definitely true. And usually that's the stuff that if everybody is saying the same thing, there's probably, no smoke without fire and all that. And the one consistent piece of outside of dry ice and liquid nitrogen, no smoke without fire. I don't think Fabrizio's got either of those. But yeah, so, we've had varying reports on, is Xhaka actively pushing and trying to force the move? What are the figures involved? What are certain positions taken by either club? But the one thing that everybody's pretty consistently agreed on is Xhaka, at least to some extent, wants this move. Now, with that in mind, this is where I think this kind of social media transfer speculation machine goes into overdrive, and this is why I hate it so much, because they know that your average football supporter, and this is not a dig at football supporters, but there's not enough hours in the day. Like you said, Chris, you're not really across sort of the ins and outs of it down to the nth degree to that level of detail, even though it's your club and your club's captain, because we've all got lives, you know. Well, maybe other people have lives. I definitely don't. But, you know, people have got other things that they need to focus on. They've got families and friends and kids and jobs and whatever. They're not sat reading through every different journalist's interpretation of every different facet of every story, right? So you see one or two, and a big name like Romano, for better or worse, he carries a lot of trust with a lot of people because he's gotten a lot of the big stories right. So it's very easy to look at one report that says, player desperate for the move, actively pushing, yada, 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 and go, right, well, that's what's happening then. So fuck him, basically. You know, he's a rat, he wants out, it's this, it's that. Okay, let's just take a little step back. You know, that's kind of where I'm trying to look at it from, because we haven't been burned, but you have seen people be burned so many times by this clickbait, extreme opinions, divisive nature of, the algorithms that serve us the content we consume. It's important to just take a little bit of a step back and remember that at the end of the day, the player hasn't come out and publicly said anything, which is both a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because the last thing you want is this all genuinely playing out, sort of everyone airing the dirty laundry in front of the press. But the downside is, if this was total nonsense, I think XHAKA would have come out and rubbished it by now, don't you? You know, a little Instagram story with a screenshot of one of the tweets and just a caption saying this is nonsense or anything like that. I think we'd have got that. So on the one hand, it being such a media circus is a huge problem. But on the other hand, when it gets to this level of sort of, you know, fever amongst our fan base and the Chelsea fan base, and then because it's a big player and a big couple of teams involved, everybody's at it. TalkSport have got people covering it, and you've got Ornstein and you've got Romano and you've got, you know, insert the names of publications here, right? So when it reaches that level of publicity, if it doesn't get kiboshed pretty quickly, you do know something's happening, don't you?
Yeah, and Andrew just done a couple of things Jonny talked about there. First of all, the timing. I can't imagine if XHAKA was, let's say he's navigating this or he's pushing this or he's driving this. Surely this wouldn't have been the ideal time for him to do this. It seems strange whether Chelsea have, jumped the gun with it or whether rumours just got out that Chelsea would want him at some point. But I'm sure that the timing's all just strange. I'm sure if he was talking to Xavi Alonso, he would have just said, let us get the World Cup done and then we'll get it done quickly after that, surely.
I would have assumed so, because playing for his country and being captain is something that's really important to him. And being at a World Cup at the biggest stage is obviously something he wants all of his attention on. I don't think the timing, it would have been his decision for any reason. And I've already seen he's had some Swiss fans, some former players have already given him stick, saying, the camp could do without this distraction. I think their coach has been questioned about it in a press conference as well.
The former manager had his say, didn't he? He hammered XHAKA a little bit, I think.
Oh, well, yeah. So I hadn't seen that particular one. But again, there you go. There's all of these voices saying, look, we could do without this. I mean, the World Cup's a hectic time anyway. Why are we now having to field this type of question? So, yeah, it's not made him any friends in the Swiss camp. It doesn't in any way increase the chances of a move that I can see. So yeah, ignoring everything else, because I do have a few questions about it, and I do feel a little bit confused by the whole thing. But yes, purely the timing, I agree. It doesn't seem to serve anybody.
Yeah.
Just to push back on that a little bit. I actually think the timing, if assuming it's true, XHAKA does want to move, which, like I say, I find that hard to not believe at this point. What's going to force the move for him is putting the club in a position where they can't keep him, right? Or it's untenable to keep him. Now, he's not necessarily going to be able to force their hand on the valuation, is he? You know, he's not going to be able to rock up to the club and say, look, Chelsea don't want to pay what you want, but you're going to have to reduce your demands, blah, blah, blah. The club will just turn around and say, you're under contract, mate. You're the captain and one of our best players, so you're staying, actually. But the thing that makes XHAKA so important to us is what he represents at this point. You know, all of the stuff that we've banged on about all season, the leadership off the pitch and blah, blah, blah. But the connection with the fans, the relationship as captain to us has been something that has made him what he is. Now, from his point of view, does he want to come out and publicly start pissing the fans off massively? No, but this does the job without him having to open his mouth, and he gets to hide behind the shield of the World Cup because he can then just in any press conference just say, I'm here to talk about Switzerland and the World Cup, thanks. I'll discuss personal issues after the World Cup or whatever. But it's still, I mean, we can see that it's started to have that effect already among the Sunderland fans. How many idiots on social media have you seen getting hundreds of likes or whatever on the posts, calling them a rat, calling them this, calling them that? Then from the club's point of view, all of a sudden, it's starting to make a lot more sense to, you know, try and get a deal sorted sooner rather than later, get the money in, start thinking about replacing him. So, you know, but it's not that I don't want this to be true, but I do think that if you're looking at it from that perspective, I actually think the timing does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, just to get into that, Andrew, that Jonny talked about there, that, you know, talking about his presence at the club, and we all know, you know, it's well publicised. Everyone's talking about him being the best signing of last season for any Premier League club, or potentially, I think it was debated whether it was in Premier League history, considering the impact he had on us. Now, we have to go back to that speech, don't we? Let's go back to that speech after that Chelsea game. Now, listening to his words at the time, can something be true in the moment and then still true when his circumstances change? And he's like, well, actually, that everything I said is still true, but I fancy this new challenge. Can it all still be meaningful and still be true?
It can be, yeah, it can be. And I take Jonny's. I've not considered this, but I hadn't really thought of the World Cup being used as a shield. I can actually see the thinking behind that now, and maybe because Sunderland fans are not used to our top players being wanted elsewhere, this might be the sort of tactic we have to get used to. I don't know, because that hadn't crossed my mind. I'm now going to have to double think everything now from now on.
You're welcome.
Just ask Jonny.
Yeah. It could be true, and a caveat to all of this, and a reason why I hope we don't go too far down the road of bed sheets with pure rat scrawled on them, is we don't know his personal circumstances. If we take this at face value, that XHAKA is open to a move, because as well, there's one thing being open to a move, and there's one thing demanding a move and spoiling things at the club you're at. There might be other players this summer who are subject to bids, and they say, well, I'll have the discussion. That doesn't mean they're not committed to Sunderland. It might just be that story doesn't reach the news and we as fans don't know about it. So, yeah, we don't know his personal circumstances. There may be perfectly legitimate reasons why he now needs to leave for the good of his family or for his own reasons. I do, though, think this is the bit that stings me the most. The speech, the fact that he allowed himself to become such a leading figure. It wasn't that long ago that he was talking about Lebris as being like the second coming of Arsene Wenger. So he's given all of these indications that he's happy here. And yes, things do change. I fully understand that. But it does leave him open to criticism. And if the things he said to us are true, if the speech at the end of the season is true and this is only the beginning, you do have to then question why Chelsea would be a good option for him. Because Chelsea are an absolute circus. The bid for him shows that. Forget your nose might be put out of joint by the low valuation Chelsea have put on him. Even just on a business sense, it makes no financial. It doesn't suit Sunderland's financial situation to sign off on a loss on a player. There is no way on earth Sunderland would have accepted 8 million or 10 million. So for Chelsea to offer that is just further proof that they don't know what they're doing. So to be at a club where you could become an icon and potentially move to a club where the fans aren't even that fussed on you, the place is a mess. Everybody's saying if he turns up there, he'll become a figure who the players respect. That doesn't just happen by chance. You've got to have players there who want to be guided and want to have somebody to look up to. And at Sunderland, that was the case. But at Chelsea, I don't know it is. So I definitely want to go into, don't want to go in two-footed. We don't know the full story. I still think there's a position where Granit Xhaka could play for Sunderland next season and we all move on and he still does his best for us. Some of the stuff that's happened, though, has left me feeling a bit conflicted, and it makes me wonder: is he the character we thought?
Yeah. Well, I want your take on the speech, Jonny, because that's what everyone keeps coming back to. That's the big thing. It's like, why did he say those things if he didn't mean it? Now, my feeling is at times, and you go backwards and forwards with it, but if someone sticks a microphone in his hand and says, say a few words, and that's how he's feeling in the moment. You saw his face when the final whistle went. The adrenaline's pumping, and that's how he feels in that moment. He spoke from the heart, and that's how he felt exactly in that moment. And like I said, it could well have been all true in that moment. But let's say he does leave. I mean, or I'm thinking about his move. Can we separate the two things? Like, let's say nobody had put that microphone in his hand that day after the game and he hadn't said those words. Would we be going, yeah, all right, fair play to him?
Well, I don't think we'd be saying fair play, would we? We're not that gracious as a fan base. But no, I still think even without the speech at the end of the season, I still think you could make exactly the same sort of criticisms of his character if you wanted to make those criticisms based on things he said throughout the course of the season, regularly and repeatedly in multiple different outlets, in multiple different formats. As I think Andrew said before, he was talking about Lebris like he was the second coming of Wenger. He was talking about Sunderland as a club, as a city, as a fan base. And now I understand that football, modern football especially, it's all a bit of a pantomime. All the players have to pretend they always love every club they're at and they've got to kiss the badge and they've got to do this. But what Xhaka was doing was way above and beyond what anyone would be expected to do in his situation. He was regularly way over-egging the pudding if it was just, classic football player and captain blowing smoke behaviour.
Well, can I jump in at that point, Jonny, and
Yes.
just ask you a question based on that then? And saying, right, he came in for a challenge. He said he wanted a new challenge. He probably got bigger profile offers, more money last summer. He chose Sunderland because he wanted the challenge of keeping the club in the Premier League. Now, you saying he over-egged everything, and maybe that was part of his role, and he dragged us up by, over-egging everything so much that he dragged us up and we ended up finishing 7th. So that was his challenge. Just to play devil's advocate, he's been offered a new challenge. Why shouldn't he be? Well, so what's the argument to say, well, he shouldn't take it? He should stay with Sunderland. What's that argument? Because at his age, he's been offered probably an opportunity he probably didn't expect would come his way. Alonso going into Chelsea, who saw that coming? Well, probably a lot of people, but who knows inside football. But yeah, I mean, he's got this new opportunity. He says, well, I've smashed that one. And what's next? Should he not be allowed to think that?
Absolutely. And look, if this all comes to pass and Xhaka goes, as long as nothing else major happens between now and then that would colour this opinion of him, I'll always think positively of Xhaka. You know what I mean? Like you say, he came in, he more than did the job he was brought in to do, led us to our best season of my life, easily by an absolute mile. And if he does leave, as long as the club do all right financially out of it, I'm not going to be. I'll feel a hell of a lot better about Granit Xhaka than I do about Darren Bent. Put it that way. He's not going to be some sort of villain to me. He'll always be the best Sunderland captain of my lifetime until that's ever superseded.
The next one.
Until somebody better's getting us into Europe, he's going to occupy that position for a long time, I think. So I think you're completely right, and it's totally fair. I just mean, if you are on the side of the fence that is leaning towards, calling them whatever and this and that, you can make a pretty cogent argument, even ignoring that end of the season speech. But for me, that's where it tips into, this is not acceptable, really, this now, which sounds ridiculous. I'm aware we're talking about football here, but you don't, as you say, right, somebody chucks a microphone in front of him and he's, positive and happy and everyone's singing his name and it's great. He didn't have to say, I promise you, from me as the captain of this club, this is just the beginning. He didn't have to say that. And then, 1 month later, a month and 3 days later, it breaks that he's pushing for a move to Chelsea. That is not enough time. I'm sorry, but it's just not enough time to have gone from what he said on that final day to this. It just isn't. And that's before you add on top, everybody hates Chelsea because they're an abhorrent football club. Their ownership's an absolute blight on the English game. They run like a basket case. They're on to their 900th manager in 5 seasons. They've got a bloated squad beyond human recognition, where he's not even going to be able to remember the names of his teammates 6 months in. So there's no footballing argument for going there. I'm sorry, there's not. I understand Chelsea are historically bigger than us and they'll pay him more money and he'll get to be with Alonso. There is no sense in which this is a footballing move that works. It just isn't. It feels like when Jack Clarke went to Ipswich, where you just look at it and go, this is obviously going to fail for him. It's not going to work. You can see it a mile off. And, it doesn't mean that you're reveling in it when it happens, but it's always more frustrating when somebody moves on and you're just looking at it going, I just don't get this, beyond money or living in London or whatever, which, I'm sorry, if we're expected to be sympathetic to that, the multi-millionaire doesn't really like living where he's living. He wants to go and live in London instead and earn twice the money. Should we play him a sad song or the world's smallest violin? Like, I don't give a shit. I don't care if he prefers London. He's paid extremely handsomely to do a job, and I'm not going to get into the whole it's disrespectful to the club or whatever, because every player disrespects the club they're leaving when they leave to join the next club, by and large, pretty much. It's just, we benefited from it when we've signed players. We'll benefit from it in the future. We can't be hypocritical enough to be like, oh, well, he signed a contract, so he should honour it. Okay, yeah, but so have plenty of players who we've ended up signing. But yeah, I just think it rankles because of what this move represents, going from an upwardly mobile project of young, hungry, ambitious players with good characters at Sunderland to whatever Chelsea is these days makes it hurt. And yeah, that final day speech, I think it's all of it together. You know what I mean? That final day speech really takes it into the territory of, I understand why everyone's really emotional, because so am I. You couldn't have been in that stadium that day and watched it and not feel at least some level of betrayal right now.
I can fully understand where you're coming from, Jonny. I think for me, yeah, it's the timeline of all of these things. Chris, you talked about the over-egging. Was that part of his job, to over-egg things, to make the project happen and what have you? Well, it wasn't like we woke up on the day of the Chelsea game and somebody suddenly said, oh, you're not in a relegation battle, lads. We're going to give you a chance to play for Europe. He'd known for a while that the team were going in that right direction, and relegation or establishing ourselves in the Premier League was the very baseline, but we were well ahead of that. So yeah, by the time he gave that speech, and yeah, emotions were running high, but you could have still made a positive speech without giving that final sign-off of this is only the beginning. That was after Alonso had been appointed at Chelsea as well. And I think subsequently to the game, he's given quotes saying he was looking forward to his first summer without any transfer distractions. And he'd said since that his family liked being up in the area. So, yeah, it's purely the timeline and the order in which things happened. It's not necessarily that those things have happened and he's maybe decided Chelsea could be a better project for him. You know, it's the timing and certain phrases that have been said at various points. Like I say, though, there's still a world for me where he could stay here. There's also, and I think we need to keep hold of this, there's a world where he goes, but there's a squad we end up stronger.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we will continue this discussion after the break, as well as a few other bits and pieces that have happened over the last few days in the world of Sunderland AFC. So we'll be back right after these.
The world's biggest soccer tournament has arrived, and you can trade the entire tournament on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade every match from the opening stage all the way to the final. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code CUP26 to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade the beautiful game. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
Imagine buying your kid a toy only to find the batteries aren't included, or buying furniture but missing the tools to build it. Frustrating, right? Now imagine the exact same feeling, but you're paying way more. That is what buying business software usually feels like: fragmented, disconnected, and incredibly expensive. Odoo completely changes that. Odoo is a complete, fully integrated business suite where all your apps actually talk to each other. We're talking automated lead routing for your sales team, seamless AI integration, and intuitive point-and-click website builder. It's everything your business needs to scale, saving you time, headaches, and money. Stop piecing your software together. Go to odoo.com. That's ODOO.com to learn more.
And welcome back to How We're the Podcast. And we got into the whole Granit Xhaka conversation before the break, and we'll just kind of bookmark this and finishing off a little bit. And I mean, Andrew, just moving forward on a few things on how it might play out. I mean, let's go to the price. So I think that seems to be, if you believe all the reports, once again, we're all just believing these rumours that I think read one earlier. I think it was like caught offside or something like that. So, I mean, it's just bizarre, some of the sources that you read about these things. But they could all be rubbish. But if it's moved up to 10 million, I mean, Sunderland are saying they're not entertaining bids, again, by the reports. But if Sunderland were to sell, what would be the region? What would be the figure in your head?
That's tricky. And so far on the face of it, I don't think we've touched on this. I think Sunderland have played this very well. I don't think the club can come out and give a formal statement, but they've clearly let it be known to certain people who can cascade information what their view is. It's really tricky because purely as a player of Xhaka's age and resale value and all of that, he's not worth as much to a buying club as he is to Sunderland because of he was almost the figurehead of a regeneration and he was a big part behind the scenes. So he might only be worth 10, 15 million to Chelsea.
Well, can I just jump in there now, just quickly on that worth, on that value?
Yeah.
Just on that, because is he now devalued himself at Sunderland?
Very potentially. Again, this is just based on what we've seen so far and what is out there in the public. It does look as if he's weakened his position. There could very well be people now who, when they're all back in training, if Xhaka comes in and I don't know, says something about your standards aren't good enough, there could very well be players now who say, "You're joking, aren't you?" So yeah, he has.
Oh, where, my Granit, you're taking the piss there.
Well, exactly. We all heard about. He apparently spoke to Chris Rigg because there was times in training when Chris Rigg could have done more. That was the story. I'm not saying I believed in that, but that was the story. Chris Rigg could very well now say, "Hey man, I've been at this club since a kid. I love this club. I don't appreciate you messing us about." You don't know. So yeah, his position has potentially weakened. I don't think it's irreversible. I really don't think that yet. For us though, whilst he might only be worth 15 million or so to a buying club, purely because they can't get any resale on him, although it does stagger me to think that Chelsea give any consideration to that type of thing, because they'll just spend anything on anybody. It's bizarre, their policies. But to us, I think the only way we could sell him and keep the fans on track and Sunderland still able to come out of this looking good is if we somehow get him 25 or 30 million for him. And I don't think Chelsea are going to pay that. If we got, though, 25 million for him, I think that would be enough for most fans to just think, right, okay, it's done with, it's not ideal, we'll move on. The other thing I do wonder about is, with it being Chelsea and given how many players they've got, Jonny, you said you'll probably not know half of the players' names. And you know what? It's right. With Chelsea, I don't know if Sunderland look to get a couple of players off them in return. Could we turn this into a benefit to Sunderland?
Well, there's been whispers in some of the reports that maybe Liam Delap's been mentioned as a potential make weight and stuff like that. I mean, take it all with a mountain of salt, but that is something that has started to swirl about a little bit.
Yeah. Fair dues. If XHAKA is going, and if it's because he wants to go, I'm very good at quickly saying, right, well, that's it. Pack your bags. I'll not give you any thought. My priority then is making sure Sunderland are the strongest possible from that. And I do think in terms of optics and in terms of everything else, we need to be seen to either be bringing in big money or money and a couple of players. And the other thing, the quicker the better. We can't have this dragging on. If XHAKA's to go, can we get it done soon, please, so that we can start identifying targets and looking to bring them in?
Yeah. I want to put that same question to you, Jonny, just because, I suppose there's been people going, oh, I wouldn't take any less than 50 million and all this sort of stuff. But I'll put the same question to you about the price, but I'll also stick in there as well about the conversations even last season when people were saying, oh, well, what we're going to do when we have to replace XHAKA, or when's, what we're going to do when XHAKA's injured, that happened and we had a period without him. And actually, some of those games when we went through the review, that actually Diarra, Sadiq and Lafayette were actually brilliant as a three at times in that middle. But anyway, does it not just bring forward that issue where we would have had to resolve at some point who's going to replace him, and maybe it just brings it forward 12 months?
Absolutely it does. And look, it's very easy to sit here now and be very negative about it, and because it's not nice, right? Our one of our best players, inspirational captain, etc., might be going. No one's going to be happy about that. But there's every chance that we could be looking back at this in 12 months' time and going, actually, that all worked out pretty well. The target next season. Well, who knows what the target's going to be internally from the club, right? Because they're clearly a lot more ambitious than any of us ever dreamed of being. But I think we can all be honest enough to accept that 17th place next season, while not desirable, is still acceptable. If we finish 17th next year, we've survived again and played in Europe. That is not good, not a success, not what we should be aiming for, but that is not a disaster. As long as we don't go down, the worst thing that happens next season is, oh, well, we've got another season ticked off in the Premier League and, the money's come in for an extra season's worth and et cetera, et cetera. So it's not like they need to go and, right, well, we need to replace XHAKA with somebody even better again. We don't, that's what we want. That isn't necessarily what has to happen. We don't need to go and chuck 50 million, 60 million, 70 million on a XHAKA replacement, because there probably isn't one out there that's like for like anyway. So we could be looking back on this as something that goes well if, and I think Andrew at the end of what he was saying hit the nail on the head here, if the club goes about it in the right way. So we've got to make sure it's quick. We cannot do what the Mags did last summer with Isak. They handled that whole saga absolutely horrendously from start to finish, and that's why they ended up signing Johan Visser for 55 million with a year left on his contract and massively injury prone. That's not good business. And so this comes back to the price point because, in an ideal world, I'd be saying set the bar at 30 million and don't budge. Tell them they've got to pay it off. That's what we should be doing. We don't need to sell. We've got the money. He's under contract. But we don't live in that world, do we? It's in our best interest to get this tied off one way or the other as soon as we can, because as you said, Chris, at the beginning of this question, which I haven't forgotten, this is something they'd have been planning for anyway. It's just something they need to bring forward. So the best thing for the club is to go, right, this is something we already had on the back burner. We just need to accelerate things. The best way of going about that is they'll already have a few targets in mind or some strategies they might go with. Best thing to do now is, right, granite, are you staying or are you going? If you're staying, fine, great. Everyone moves on. If you're going, we get the best deal we possibly can from Chelsea in decent time, and we just move straight onto the targets on this list and we don't look back. So I want to say 30 million because we signed him for 17 from a worse league with less money in it, which is why he only cost us 17 million, because he wouldn't have cost that last season if we signed him from the Premier League. So we absolutely can't sell him for any less than that, considering we're selling them to Chelsea, of all clubs. So we've got to make a profit. And then at that point, it's just up to the club and up to Gazolfi and whoever to make that judgment call on where that dividing line is between how low can we go before we're doing ourselves damage, while also how long can this drag out before we're just hurting ourselves as well. Because at the end of the day, we all want Sunderland to come out with this better off than we went in. And the best way to do that is to not let this drag on. Because if it becomes a saga, it's more, feed for the vultures in the media to peck over our carcass all summer. It makes us look like a laughingstock in the transfer market. It devalues our reputation with potential signings, I think, and other lads in the dressing room. It's not what we want. We've got to operate with the same efficiency we usually do. And I trust the club. I don't think there's any club in England better prepared to deal with a situation like this than Sunderland, outside of Bournemouth, Brentford, Brighton. And even then, you could maybe quibble with a couple of, Bournemouth especially, they've been brilliant at it the last few seasons. But outside of them, I wouldn't trust any recruitment department in the country more than ours with this situation. Just because it's what they do. This is the way they operate. So I'm sure it'll come as a surprise to them to some degree, but it won't come as a shock to them in terms of preparing for it and dealing with it and going for it. So if we end up with somewhere in the region of 20 to 25 million, maybe plus a few add-ons or something like that, then I think that's the kind of deal where we'd be able to walk away from it and go, look, as long as we reinvest this money, we've probably done all right.
Well, that's the other thing, that we've built up a reputation of being good, not getting in players' ways, I suppose, when offers have come along. But Andrew, just quickly, and you can have your say on that as well, but just very quickly as well, that let's say this move doesn't go through, but XHAKA comes out publicly, or, it is true that he was open to the move or wanted the move, and then he's in a Sunderland strip on the first day of the season. Will all be forgiven? Will we go back to normal? Has everything changed now?
I think we're a real tipping point for that. If he is to stay, we're going to need to see him really putting
give a speech.
Well, do you know what I was going to say? We need him being like a politician, going kissing babies in the bridges and doing all that kind of thing. But yeah, that's perhaps what's got us into that position. We need to see him knuckling down and working hard, and maybe even saying the word sorry. I know that's a bit daft, but we're going to have to see that he accepts. Again, this is all based on the assumptions on what we've seen is correct and that he has, to some element, pushed this through. if he's to accept, yeah, it was a mistake, but now I'm here and I'm going to give it me best, and then he follows that with actions, I do think we can move on. He's not done himself any favours though, and there will be elements in the crowd. Those first couple of games, first game back at the stadium, I want to say Fulham. Do we play Fulham? You know,
Yep.
if his first corner doesn't beat the first man, he's going to be getting grief, and he's going to have to take it on the chin. I don't think we're quite at that point yet. I think he can save himself and pull back from this now. Listen, footballers are clever. This is the reason why they do everything via agents and they don't say things on when there's ongoing transfers. As Jonny said, maybe being in the Switzerland camp is a force field, which has meant he hasn't had to say anything and nail his colours to the mast. There is a way back from him. I will feel a bit awkward about it though, me personally, just because of the type of person I am, and I am very much, right, well, if you say you want away from Sunderland, that's it. I'm pulling the drawbridge up. What Jonny was saying before, I thought was excellent. I agreed with it. One thing I slightly wonder about though is, and I think you've said this as well, Chris, this idea of the club were always going to have to replace him. My only problem with that is maybe the club's plan was to do it gradually over time so that he still was playing a few games and rotating with younger prospects and still being at the club and still being like a father figure in that. If he goes, you don't have that little bonus time with XHAKA. And the other thing about the club, we're always considering a day when he's not able to play. And one of the reasons why this stings so much is nearly everybody was working on the assumption that when he does hang his boots up, he was being primed for a job on the coaching staff. We did think that. Whether there was any truth to that or not, we don't know. But that is another reason why people are saying, well, hold on, why are you now talking about potentially moving elsewhere?
I did particularly like that you hinted that he was on neutral ground while he's away with the Swiss camp. That worked.
I wish I was that clever, man.
On so many levels. But anyway, right, last question, one word answer, gents. Start with Jonny. Do you think he'll go?
Yes.
Andrew?
Aye.
Okay,
yeah.
We've got a full house there, and we think Granit Xhaka is not going to be a Sun player next season, so we'll see how that plays out. But we've talked so much about Granit Xhaka. We'll try and squeeze in the rest of the news as if we go very quickly, we'll fly through it. Because according to reports, I think I read this in the Echo, it might have been in other places, but apparently Sunderland have made an approach for Spanish defender Oscar Mingueza. Celta Vigo confirmed in a statement on Tuesday that he would be one of a few players leaving the club as a free agent. It sounded like Italian journalist Matteo Moretto reported that Sunderland were one of the clubs chasing him, along with Atalanta and Como in Italy. He's just turned 27. He started out at Barcelona, ever present for the last few years at Celta Vigo. And I'll start with you, Jonny. But this, looking at his profile, unsurprisingly, centre half and can play fullback and versatile. Is this Getrauda on a free transfer?
You've read me mind, Chris. That's exactly where I was going. It does tick a lot of the same boxes, doesn't he? I think, look, I haven't watched loads of this guy play, I'm not going to lie, but, by reputation seems a decent player, makes a lot of sense, fills some holes that we need filling, and potentially opens up the option of, let's say we do go on to sign Getrauda still, it maybe frees him up to be less of a utility man and a little bit more of a specialist for us going forward, to be able to actually play a bit of a bigger role in the squad. That's a lot of ifs in that, but that's one potential avenue. If not, even if it's just this lad who comes in and Getrauda goes elsewhere or whatever, we've still plugged a couple of holes. We've not spent a lot of money. And I think after prioritising the defence a lot last summer with our more experienced and first team ready signings, makes a lot of sense this summer if we maybe just look to plug a couple of gaps at the back and then focus the money more going forward where it's maybe needed a bit more, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems like, but cracking profile for a free transfer, but it fits what we do seemingly do in the defensive positions, Andrew, where we've got that little bit more experience than the 20, 21-year-olds we get in the forward positions.
Yeah, you're dead right. Whether he is a player who comes here or not, all of the names we seem to be linked with are all from stronger leagues, pretty much from the bigger clubs in those leagues as well. I don't know too much about Celta Vigo, but I see we've been linked with somebody who's from Bayern Munich and somebody from Inter Milan recently. So, yeah, teams who are playing in Europe, players who've got international experience. It does seem as if this lad would come within Sunderland's radar. Particularly this one was quite interesting. I saw he was in last season's Europa League Team of the Season. And of course, Sunderland are going to be in that very same competition, and we're going to need a little bit of European know-how. So it does look as if it would add up. And you know what we're like as fans, particularly when there's the potential of the captain moving away. A nice signing of somebody who looks decent on paper, I think, would get everybody smiling again.
Yeah. And sticking with you, Andrew, Matty Young's joined Huddersfield Town on a season-long loan. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that he's gone out for another loan deal, but Huddersfield Town in League One, he's moving up slowly. I think some people suggested he might have moved to the Championship. And actually, I actually said in the previous pod that if I was the manager in the Championship, I'd probably look to him on a season-long loan rather than maybe Patterson, just for the financial aspect. But good deal for him, do you think?
It appears to be, yeah. He's not a million miles away from home because he's still a young kid. And this is second-hand information, admittedly, but from what I gather, the type of football Huddersfield were playing last season, possession-based, wanting their keeper to be able to be comfortable on the ball, that suits him. So it does feel at the moment like a nice fit. And he's definitely going to be a player I think most Sunderland fans are going to keep an eye on, because he is making steps in the right direction, and so far so good from the lad.
Yep, absolutely. Moving on, Dan Neil signed for Rangers, Jonny. It looked like it was Southampton for a while, but he's gone to Scotland and joined Rangers. Do you think that's a good move for him?
I mean, how good a move can it be if it's going to Scotland? With the greatest of respect, it's a proud footballing country and all that, but from a player's point of view in your career, is it the most prestigious step you could take? Possibly not. But having said that, he's going to be playing top-level football instead of playing in the second tier if he'd gone to Southampton. He'll be playing in Europe. He will be competing for trophies. And as much as I've just been a bit snobby about it there, but as much as you can look down your nose at Scottish football, they're still major honours. He's still going to be playing in a team that's at the right end of a table and playing better football and dominating games by and large. So I think it makes a lot of sense. He doesn't have to go too far. Obviously, being a local lad at Sunderland, it's not miles away up there to Scotland. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I hope it works out for him. Neil was an excellent servant for us, and he made over 200 appearances for Sunderland, which is a hell of an achievement. So I wish him all the best, but I don't really like Rangers. So not all the best, but the best.
Are they in the you mentioned Europe? Are they in the Europa League? Is there a chance of a Dan Neil rematch?
Potentially, but have they not got to qualify?
Yeah, Scottish clubs definitely have to go through the qualifiers, depending on league positions.
Are they likely to get through a couple of rounds? I mean, I don't know.
Well, now they've got Dan Neil pulling the strings, I'd say yes. that might be a nice little story for us down the line.
Yeah, one for you here, Andrew, because you've probably seen him play a little bit more than me and Jonny, I guess. Zach Johnson left to join York City in a permanent deal, so we might see him play against us in the pre-season friendly now.
Aye, is that the law now? Any player will let join somebody else. We might have a fixture against them soon.
It's part of the deal, I think.
Yeah.
We're not going to get done for brown envelopes again, are we, for all these dodgy friendlies we keep setting up?
I think York will be over the moon because apparently he was excellent for them. They've just been promoted into the Football League. So, again, that's a good move for him. I think he'll do really well. I didn't mind him, Zach Johnson. I think there was clearly somebody there who could have a career in the professional game. So I'm not surprised to see him go to a club in the Football League now. and one where he's already played. He obviously knows the club well. He should do brilliantly for them.
Yeah. And last one, I think, Jonny, because we'll push for time, but rumours Eliza Mayenda is going to Porto for 25 million, although it seemed to be kind of denied by, I don't know whether it was the club or reports were coming out saying it was a bit of rubbish, but it just seems like with the amount of clubs he's been linked with, seems like his agent is doing very agenty things.
Yeah, agents doing agents things. We'll stick that in room 101 and all. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear he's going to go this summer now, isn't it? Like you say, the sheer volume of reports, and a lot of them have been not just throwaway things from a 5-follower account on Twitter or whatever. So yeah, I think he's going to go as long as the club looks after themselves. I think that's the main thing, because I love Mayenda. We all do. You know, he's a great relationship with us as a fan base, and I think he's got the potential to go on to become an incredibly talented and valuable player. So I'd like to say a sell-on clause or something like that in the deal, because I think just if the timing had maybe been a bit different, I think Mayenda would be first choice here, and we wouldn't even be considering letting him go. But, you know, maybe just that season too early to get into the Premier League for him to be able to cement his place. So, yeah, wish him all the best if he does go, but let's just squeeze every single penny out of him, shall we, boys?
Yeah, and very, very last one, very quickly, squeeze one in, Andrew. We're recording this before England's last 32 game. Are we ready to be confused when Siddiqui runs rings around England?
Well, I can't watch the match live, so there's a quick answer for you. I've got no idea, and I don't particularly care.
As long as he doesn't get injured.
I'm in a mood because I can't watch the game live tonight. So,
Jonny, are you supporting Siddiqui or England?
We'll see who wins come full time, and I was supporting them the whole way through.
And there you go. There it is. We'll see how it goes. But that just leaves me to say thank you very much to Jonny and Andrew. That's fantastic. As always, and thanks again, everyone, for listening. Don't forget, loads more on the Roker Report website. Everything we've talked about, loads of articles, especially on a certain midfielder at the moment, and a whole lot more. We'll also be back tomorrow with another How We're the podcast. But from us, it's bye for now.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.